Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. Not only about finding your finish line at a race or an event, but also in life. And my guest today, she goes down the road that none of us, we all want to go down it, but we always don't know what that is. And it's called nutrition. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Before we do, I want to talk about Tri-Dot and Run-Dot. You all know about the two different training programs for triathlon and running. The Tri-Dot platform for coaches, for you athletes out there, make sure you check it out. It's led by legendary coaches, McKeely Jones and Mark Allen, Craig Alexander, Marinda Carfrey, Tim O'Donnell, and Run-Dot by none other than Meb Keflezighi. So check them both out. If your training isn't going where you want it to go, check out Tri-Dot and Run-Dot. So my guest today is based out of Minnesota. She's a registered dietitian, and she felt her calling when she came across the finish line of Ironman Wisconsin, and I'm really going to jump into that with her. And then she leaned into what she felt her mission was to serve endurance athletes with nutrition, to be able to let them know how they need to fuel to improve with their training and their recovery, and especially their racing. So welcome to the podcast today, Alex Larson. I love having you on. This is great.
I'm so excited. I was telling my team, I was like, I get to meet the Mike Riley. Obviously, we met not really officially, but just briefly as I passed the finish line of Ironman Wisconsin in 2014. But yeah, this is a special moment for me to meet you.
Yeah, Alex, you could have gone a little slower and we could have met, you know.
Yeah, I could have just waited until the end. But no, I wanted to get done with that race. It was a long day.
Sometimes they're all long days. So
yes,
talking about racing, my first question on Find Your Finish Line is the same for all the guests. What kind of workout did you get in today, or are you planning to do?
I did get my workout in already, which I'm, looking at my schedule. This was the morning was basically a hour and a half threshold ride on the bike trainer. So it's still a little chilly here in Minnesota for spring, and so. I rode on the trainer, but hoping to get outside more often here soon.
Well, I'm in San Diego, and I have to admit, I got about an hour in on the trainer in the garage this morning because I did it early, and it was a little nippy. And I go, I think I'll just ride in the garage. And other people, when I tell that to, especially from Minnesota or Wisconsin, they go, what was it, like 65? I go, well, it was like 63 and a little cool, you know. And I get yelled at for that. So.
Yeah, we like the cold up here for the most part. I don't handle the heat like some people in the South do, but yeah, I'm ready for summer for sure.
Yeah, I'll bet you are. So you said you found your calling at that finish line, that Ironman. And from what I read and what I'm surmising, the nutritional part of the day didn't go as you had planned, or the preparation. Was that the case?
Not necessarily. I felt like for what we knew about endurance sports nutrition in 2014, my nutrition was pretty decent. But when I crossed the finish line, that was kind of that moment of, oh, wow, if I didn't know what I was doing with my nutrition, I really don't know how this day would have gone if I would have made it to the finish line. And I witnessed, the second half of that marathon is a bit of a war zone. There's a lot of people like cramping, sitting on the sidelines, crying because they're struggling to continue going. They might be throwing up. They might be hitting that wall. And there's a lot of time, effort, money, sacrifice, time away from kids and family that goes into prepping for these big races. And when I crossed that finish line, I was like, you know what? I think I need to help my people. I feel like this is where I can connect my passion for endurance sports and for triathlon with my expertise as a dietitian. And so that's what I ended up doing. I started Alex Larson Nutrition, and now I truly feel like I have one of the best jobs in the world, getting to help athletes not only navigate the training, but also show up on race day feeling really confident that they can execute a good nutrition plan and celebrate and have a great race.
Well, I know all the veterans out there in triathlon, and I said it many times at races. Make sure you don't discount or ignore the fourth discipline of triathlon, and that's nutrition. And you being a dietitian, you said somewhere where you said that's simply a way of saying that you want others to feel great and to love their food. Uh, and it's not always easy to love food that sometimes you don't want to eat, but you need to eat. How do you get
Yes.
past that?
Yeah, I took a little break from endurance sports to grow our family. I've got 3 young kids, and now that I'm getting back into competitive sport, I realized I was like, oh yeah, I have to build up this skill again of taking in fuel
Mhm.
and hydration when my body is not really wanting it. So that definitely is a skill, and I think that goes down to practicing it over and over, and training is really important in making sure that not only you're fueling the workouts well, but you're also practicing staying on a schedule, taking in that fuel even when your body's like, oh, I don't really want to take this, but you need
Yeah.
to. And that's something that when you can do that repeatedly throughout your training, when you get to race day and you're thinking about positioning and where you're at on the course and heart rate and all of those things that are going on, that the grabbing your sports fuel or grabbing your bottles to hydrate and take in fuel, it's almost second nature, that it doesn't take a lot of that you're maybe starting to grab that gel or grab those energy
Mhm.
chews even a couple minutes before your little bike computer or your watch is alerting you to take in fuel. That's to me one of a really important part of the logistics and practicing in training so that you can set yourself up to execute it well on race day.
Do you still see yourself uh, going through trial and error with nutrition, especially now that you're coming back to working out? I always found, I'd have 3 bike rides and I'd take this type of nutrition on it. I feel great. Then the fourth one, I go, that sucks. I gotta change because your body changes and age and everything. Do you find trial and error is something that's always kind of happening?
I mean, I do. I love that nowadays we have so many different options of products that we can try. I
Mm.
think that that's really great. I tend to be pretty brand agnostic because everyone has a little bit different preference in texture and taste. Um, but I also think it's great to test out the products that are going to be on the race course too and know that those can be
Hmm.
an option for you to grab.
Hmm.
I think nowadays endurance sports has kind of become an eating contest within a race because carbs are so powerful in terms of a fuel source to help you feel great and perform well. So with the larger amount of carbs that we're taking in per hour, I think it definitely is nice to have a variety, but also like finding something that's really easy to get down. Back in 2014, when I did Ironman Wisconsin, I was not a huge fan of gels, but I've almost kind of trained myself to be able to take them in pretty easily. Especially for me, I've been dabbling with some gravel racing, and sometimes I'm on
Good.
technical terrain or I'm on a part of the course where I don't have a lot of opportunity to maybe grab like energy chews or grab something that's really going to require a lot of my hands. So if I can get a gel down really quick and keep focusing on racing, then that's kind of a good ticket to use that way.
Well, what's flexible eating style? What is that? You talk about that. It actually sounds kind of cool. Like, okay, I can I have this? Can I have that? It does, because nutrition has always been so strict. You
Yeah.
got to have this much protein, this much carbs. So, what is flexible eating style?
Yeah. When I think of how to set up an athlete to eat well day in and day out, not just in their workouts, but also in their breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, it can be really easy to get overly prescriptive.
Hmm.
And I know that a lot of athletes are fairly type A and they like to have a very structured plan,
Oh,
but food,
you think so? You
I
think
do. I
so?
noticed a trend, not only with myself, but in a lot of athletes. And with food, it's really important to have a structured plan, but also have flexibility in that. So, for example, let's say an athlete is trying to get in 140 grams of protein every day to support recovery. Well, let's get flexible with that in terms of not just eating the same exact foods like plain chicken breast and a protein shake every day. Like, let's mix it up with maybe some plant-based sources like beans and legumes. Let's add in one of my favorite things is like Fairlife chocolate milk. I love the taste of Fairlife chocolate milk like after a workout. And so doing something like that, that's 13 grams of protein per cup versus regular milk's 8, soy milk's 6, almond milk is 1. You know what I mean? So like, let's look for foods that you really enjoy, but also are going to help you meet your nutritional needs, and add variety throughout your day and through your week so that you are enjoying what you eat, but you're also meeting your body's needs.
With all the time consumed with training and everything, and then having to eat correctly, you've got to have someone helping you with that, don't you? I mean, I've got buddies that are single, and men and women, and they're just always going out to eat because it's so much easier.
Yeah, cooking for one is tough.
It's like it's almost like why, you know. So you can get the same thing going out, but it's a little tougher when it's not home cooked, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't have as much control over how it was made. There's certainly things that you can do when eating out that can be a little better option, especially if it's something like I know people love like Chipotle type style restaurants where they can like go through the line and kind of pick and choose what's on there. So just thinking through like, okay, what can I choose to get the nutrition that I need that's going to support my goals, support recovery from all of my training, and also like taste really good too. So there's a balance, I think, between both. But I do love it when athletes have the skills and knowledge and strategies to be able to prepare their meals and snacks at home and feel good about that.
We're speaking with Alex Larson, registered nutritionist, and her team talk to endurance athletes every day. So, Alex, my question to you is, when they come to you, what's usually their main concerns about nutrition?
I think the most common ones that I see are how to eat well while also training, when they have families, when they have careers, and how to navigate all of that and meeting their needs as a triathlete that's running, biking, swimming, strength training, doing all of that, prepping for races. It's a lot to navigate, and there's a lot of noise out there on the internet about nutrition, and so they're just looking for clarity. They are looking to have the weight lifted off their shoulders in terms of feeling good about their food decisions, that they are able to meet their goals, fuel their training. They might be recovering poorly from all of the activity that they're doing, and so I'm there to help simplify things, help them build those tools and strategies and knowledge so that they can fuel themselves for however many years that they want to do triathlon. That's my goal. I love working with them, but I don't want to work with them forever. So if I can build that up for them and help them graduate from working with me and feel confident in their fueling choices moving forward, that's a win in my book.
So is it more concerned? Are they more concerned about nutrition while training, or while racing, or while recovery, or is it kind of all blended in?
Well,
when I'm training a lot, I usually don't do my nutrition as correctly training as I do trying to, I did a hard workout, now I know what I need to eat to recover.
Yeah, well, I think because with triathletes, they're training all the time due to the volume and frequency that they're training. I think any meal and snack that they're eating throughout the day is an opportunity to support recovery. Because what we know from the research is like a protein shake and a snack after your workout is not going to like fully help you recover immediately after a hard workout. It can be easily 12 to 24, maybe even beyond, depending on how long and intense their workout is. And so to me, when we can hone in on a good structured eating plan, making sure they are getting enough at their meals, supplementing with snacks, that we can really hone in on that recovery. A great example would be, I had a triathlete I worked with. He loved to do 70.3s. And he was struggling with muscle fatigue by the end of the weekend. Like, he would train all week. He'd get his long workouts in on Saturday, Sunday. By Sunday, his long ride, his legs were so tired, he could barely get through that long workout. But he was short on protein, on average 30 grams a day. He was underfueled pretty significantly. So when we started having him incorporate a little more protein at breakfast and lunch, making sure that he was getting enough throughout the day. Within a couple weeks, he was a completely different person on Sunday. He was like, I actually have fresh legs on Sunday, which was a huge testament to him putting in the work and making those changes with his nutrition, but also is going to help him have bigger fitness gains and be set up better for himself on race day.
And you're able to set up also because obviously triathlon it goes from 18 to 80. And according to your age on obviously how much protein you may need because you're getting a little older and you need to keep that muscle mass. And you curtail it for the age too, don't you?
Yeah, of course. This gentleman was in his like early mid 50s.
Okay.
So typically what we're noticing in the research with masters athletes is that the body doesn't absorb protein quite as well as it did in your younger years. And so you might need to make sure that you're increasing that protein intake a little bit more just to ensure absorption. But regardless, I think making sure that we're just getting enough to eat in general. If we can get a good amount of carbs to support performance, get plenty of protein to support recovery, making sure we're getting fruits and vegetables for those micronutrients when we can. I mean, those are the things. It's just creating that routine, having it be integrated into your lifestyle so that you can be successful in that pretty consistently is kind of the secret sauce to it all.
You mentioned a little bit ago snacks. Yeah. Whenever you say that word to anybody, you know where their head's going because we grew up. Is it chips? Is it a Snickers bar? Is it so on recovery snacks? What do you recommend on that? Walnuts or what? Because snacks are got to be good for you in our game.
Yeah, I think people rely a little bit too much on snacks. I tend to find the biggest gaps are in them. They're not eating enough at meals, and therefore they're still feeling hungry an hour and a half after they finished a meal. So to me, that makes me a little curious. I'm like, okay, maybe if we can increase the volume and the amount that you're eating at lunch or breakfast, they might be a little stingy on things. That can help really regulate appetite throughout the day. I see that from a lot of endurance athletes, a lot of triathletes. It's like, I'm hungry all day long, constant hunger. I feel like I'm constantly eating. So the first step for me with athletes is making sure we're increasing their meal contents. And then if we're going longer than 3-4 hours without a meal, then we can have a planned snack. A snack, I like to see both some carbohydrates and some protein. I find that if you just have carbs, it doesn't really stick for very long. You start to get hungry pretty soon. If you got both some protein and carbs in there, I feel like it satisfies that appetite, but also fuels you. It's also a great opportunity to fill in some nutrition that you might have missed out elsewhere in the day. So maybe earlier on in the day, because you were training, you didn't get any vegetables or fruit in. So maybe it's some carrot sticks and dip, and then a hard-boiled egg. It could be some crackers and cheese. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy, and it certainly doesn't have to be a protein bar either. So thinking through, okay, what am I missed out earlier on in the day, or what am I going to not get later on in the day because I've got soccer practice and running my kids around? That would be a good opportunity to kind of fill in that gap there with the snack.
In my go-to, you mentioned the hard-boiled egg. That's always I don't know. I just always kind of know when I need protein or carbs. Maybe it's just because I've been around so long. You get it figured out. But that hard-boiled egg is one heck of a quick and easy
It's
go-to.
so easy. Yeah, it's a good one.
So you hear about, and I'm sure you are well aware of the blue zones throughout the world that they talk about. The one in Italy, Sardinia, I think it is, in Italy, where the people eat a lot of colorful vegetables, olive oil, have a glass of wine, walk a lot, and they live they have long lives. And do you subscribe to that you could actually, because now with the onset of so much work being done with Alzheimer's on how you can stave off dementia and Alzheimer's if you eat correctly and do the right things, it's almost like, can you help us live in a blue zone by what you do, the type thing?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, for me, I like to work with the individual, right? So maybe there's someone that they're a single mom with 2 kids, or maybe there's someone that has a big corporate job and they do a lot of traveling. I like to kind of work with the individual and figure out, okay, what's the best way with their schedule, their food preferences, their cooking skills, their lifestyle, and figuring out how can we make the best of this situation. So not everyone lives in an area, maybe they're really rural and they have to drive everywhere to get anywhere, they can't walk. And maybe they have an office job where they're really sedentary. So it's like, okay, can we have you take 10 minutes of your hour lunch break to go for a little walk through the office or a walk around the building, taking advantage of those types of things, but also practicing it. I think it's one thing to think about doing that. It's another thing to actually do that. So working with them on that behavior change and having it become routine and integrated into their life, I think is the biggest thing. Because again, it's one thing to know what to do, but it's another thing to actually do that. And that's where I can help bridge that gap.
So weight loss, always top of mind for so many people, triathletes, runners, endurance athletes. Do you think sometimes they worry about their weight a little bit too much? And I mean that in a positive sense. If somebody's really overweight and they've got to lose weight, we know that. But do you find sometimes you want to say, quit worrying about your weight so much?
That's really funny you say that, because I just asked my Instagram audience the other day, I'm like, at what age do you have to reach in order for you to stop worrying about your weight? And I had people from 30s all the way up to 60s. I have heard from a cyclist that is 79 years old wanting to reset his metabolism and improve his body fat percentage. There's a woman that recently ran a major marathon, and she's 80 years old and was wanting to still lose weight. Or you hear from people in their 90s and they're like, oh, if I could just lose 10 pounds. I do work with athletes on body composition 100%. I'm okay with that as long as we approach it in a very healthy way and it's a realistic weight to achieve and works well for them. But also I do feel like we've kind of conditioned our brains to always want to see weight loss and be thinner. And in the endurance world, when you see, these lean, fast, more elite level athletes and compare it, and we're constantly comparing ourselves, like it does break my heart a little bit. Whereas, to me, when I get a message from someone in their 80s saying they want to lose weight, and I just want to be like, can you just eat whatever you want? You made it to 80. Like, let's celebrate that. Like, enjoy your life. Don't focus on you being 24% body fat. Like, you're probably not competing against many other 80-year-olds in your age group at the races. Like, you won.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, part of me is like that, but also wanting them to live their healthiest life ever too. Like, there's a balance between those two. And I think it's okay to have body composition goals, but let's not have it impact your mental health and your relationship with body and your relationship with food.
Yeah, I agree. And not to make light of it, but if I'm in my 80s and 90s, I just want to wake up every day. I'm not going to worry about my weight.
Yeah, like have some ice cream every single day. You know what I mean? Like, I just think of like when my grandma was alive and she claimed she had diabetes, but she managed it very well with diet and exercise. And she'd always ask me, because I was at that point, a young dietitian or a dietitian student, and she's like, Alex, what should I eat? And I'm like, Grandma, you're 86 years old. Eat whatever you want. Get what you want. Like, please just enjoy your life.
Yeah, I really. So on race day, and I've talked to a lot of athletes, they had a good day or a bad day, and a lot of times it's because of nutrition. Mm-hmm. But I always found out they always were trying different things. Why? I mean, why is that? I go, what do you mean you're doing that? Didn't you do that last race? Yeah, but I wanted to try this for this race. Like, it was take some time off their time. And why do they always want to switch around and do different things while they're racing?
That is a good question. It's the cardinal rule. You don't try anything new on race day. But yet, I think I don't know if it's self-sabotage or it's just like curiosity of how this would impact my race. But with all of the training that you typically do for triathlons, your training is a pretty good opportunity to test out things.
Mm.
So don't wait until the last minute. Take that time, be intentional about trying new things. Don't listen to what anyone else is doing, in the days leading up to the race and think that you need to try that. What you have done in your training and what you've practiced is going to be the best way for you to set yourself up for success on racing. And then if the race doesn't go well and it was a nutrition issue, that's something that working with a sports dietitian can certainly help. For us, I call ourselves a food detective. I'm not the food police, but I'm a food detective.
Yeah.
I always am getting curious of okay, why did this training session not feel great? Well, what can we look through how you've been eating, how you've been fueling, how you've been hydrating, and figure out what we can change for the next workout to see how things are going to feel there. For me, I always like to provide the why and the how we can help athletes fuel and eat well so that, again, they understand, how that can impact their day-to-day and their performance.
Alex, do you have your athletes, your clients log what they eat during the day and during the week, etc.?
I do, not that because I don't personally love taking a food journal for myself. So my goal is always to get them to the point where we can wean them off the journal, but it is a really effective learning tool. For people that have never journaled their food, the first few days, it's a enlightening experience for them. It's they might be aware of oh wow, I actually don't eat a lot of protein. I thought I was eating a lot more protein than what I actually am, or oh, I really am not eating much during the day at all. One of my very first clients, I looked at her journal the first few days that she started tracking it. And I said, remind me again what your goals are. She goes, I don't want to think about food anymore. And I'm like, well, mission accomplished. You're hardly eating all day long. And she was like, well, actually, what I meant is I don't want to have to have all of this food noise, constantly be wondering and thinking about what I should be eating, how much. I was like, okay, yes, that we can work on, but you're hardly eating during the day. It's we need you to fuel yourself throughout the day when you're busy. I think she was running a farm and she taught some fitness classes and she was training she was doing it all, but she was hardly taking the time to eat. So those are the things where we can build awareness through a food journal, but also taking a food journal can be really helpful in terms of understanding how the food choices you're making translates to the nutrition you're providing your body, how much protein, how many calories, how much carbohydrates, micronutrients in there. And then how does that translate to your daily energy levels, your appetite throughout the day, your performance in your workouts, your sleep, your body composition? It helps connect the dots that way. And for my role is providing that context of if I have an athlete that says, hey, on Monday, my 75-minute bike ride in the afternoon, I was starving 15 minutes into that ride. He's like, do you have any thoughts? And I'm like, sure, let me look back on that journal. Instead of having him try to recall everything he ate in the couple days prior, I saw he rode Saturday. He did a 4-hour ride Sunday morning, didn't fuel with a lot of carbs the rest of the day, did okay with his nutrition on Monday during the day. And then by Monday afternoon, he was pretty depleted because he had ridden so much over the weekend. So being able to provide that context, being like, hey, next time you have a 4-hour Sunday ride, I need you to focus on XYZ here to help you recover from that ride and set you up for a good recovery ride on Monday.
Yeah, I've got a quick story I just thought about. When I was in college in Ohio, there was a race called Tosriff. It was from Columbus down to the Scioto River on the border and back. So you'd ride 100 and then you'd stay in somebody's house and ride 100 back. And it was the first time, and I wrestled in college and ran a lot. And it was the first time while you were working out, someone said to me, because they had these food stations, eat, just keep eating. I go, what are you talking about? We're riding. No, you can eat when you're riding. And I couldn't believe what I consumed on that ride. And I felt so good at the end of it. But it was also psychological. I go, I get to work out and I'm eating while I'm riding.
Do you want to know what my mantra is for my triathletes on the bike?
What?
It's the bike is the buffet. That's what I tell them. And so as they're racing, I'm in their head going, the bike is the buffet. I'm like, yep, you need to be eating before you're hungry. You need to be drinking before you're thirsty. So you stay on top of it so you can go into the run well-fueled and not behind on nutrition. So
I
the
like
bike is
that.
the buffet.
The bike is your buffet. Listen to that, everybody. The bike is your buffet. That'll get you through the run. Okay. Just tell them
Yes.
that.
Yes. If people are struggling on the run, I look at the bike first.
We talked about the weight loss thing, and it hit me because uh, there's so many people out there right now taking, and I know I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor, and taking drugs that are so prevalent out there right now to help people lose weight. You think I just always want to say lifestyle is something that you can improve to do that. Do you think that's going to be something that's going to be detrimental down the line?
I I don't think it's going away. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've started in the past year to see a couple athletes that have used like a GLP-1 type medication.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some stipulations for it. If they're going to go down that route, I think if we're going to go about doing that in the healthiest way possible, I've got a few rules for them where I say, I want you to work with a dietitian before you go on the GLP-1 and work with someone throughout that process to make sure that we are supporting muscle mass and strength as much as possible, because that's one of the biggest side effects is if they are not eating correctly while on that, they are going to see a significant amount of strength loss. I would focus on using that drug temporarily, only in the off season, not while they're training for a race in their main season. I would have a DEXA scan, so a body composition test, understanding what their bone density is prior to going on that, and then every 3 months throughout that process, and then having a plan to get off of the medication and maintain a good, healthy lifestyle after that. So to me, I feel like if you're going to go on those types of medications, it's almost a little bit more work. I think that some people think like, oh, it's easy. I'm just going to take this shot and I'm going to naturally lose weight. But it's like, no, if we're going to do this the right way so that you can still be a successful athlete long-term, there are some definite guidelines that I would want them to follow.
I was just thinking about your job, your mission, and I'm a nutritionist of helping people eat correctly and everything. But don't you also have to kind of jump into what their lifestyle is? Because you can't, it's just not all about the food. It's about how they're living. How do you approach that with somebody?
Yeah, as someone who has 3 young kids and a full-time job, and my husband also runs his own business, and I'm training 8, 9, 10 hours a week, like it's a lot. So I can relate to a lot of the really busy athletes and understanding like, yeah, you can't do it all. Or you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. So, I mean, for me, I relate to them a lot in the challenges of lifestyle. But also, I think that it's important to be intentional about taking care of yourself. For me, stress management is a challenge. And so it's like, okay, well, I can't give away my kids. I can't quit my job. I can't, I don't want to stop training. So it's like, what can I do to take care of myself? So recently I'm like, I'm going to make a intentional change of being in bed at 9:30 with hopes to being asleep at 10 p.m. so that I can get at least a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. That I can do to take care of myself, because even though my life's stressful, it can be a little less stressful if I'm well rested, right? Or it's like maybe an athlete has a really busy midday schedule. Like I had an athlete who is a surgeon. And so she's in surgery from around like 7, 8 a.m. to about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously can't be eating during that time. So we set up on days that she's in surgery. By the time that she starts work that morning, she's had about 50 grams of protein and like carbs and other things as well. But she's had like a full-blown breakfast, maybe even a protein shake before she even starts that first case for herself, so that when she gets to her early afternoon, she's not like completely depleted. And you know how you get when you're like ferociously hungry and it's kind of hard to concentrate on anything in life. And that was a game changer for her, just to make that one simple change where her lifestyle prevented her from eating all morning long. But it's like, yeah, we're going to get ahead of that nutrition. And then once she can have lunch, we're going to get back on track and have a good routine the rest of the day. So everyone's situation is figure outable in my mind, of like, let's have a plan in place to set you up for success.
I love that. It can be figured out. It's just obviously there's work involved.
Yeah, there
And
definitely is work involved, and you have to be intentional. You have to practice it and figure out, okay, what's going to work best for me.
Alex, how do you advise people who, let's say they're the only one in the household who's turning their life around and trying to eat healthy and everything, and nobody else in the household's doing that? How do
Oh.
they deal with that situation? Because I've known friends the same thing. They start getting healthy, but maybe their partner or spouse or kids or brother or sister are not in that world, and it's kind of hard to separate from them. And you're not going to preach to them. You got to eat healthy too. How do you advise those type of people to keep on track?
Yeah, I hear that from quite a few athletes, especially ones that maybe have like kids where they worry about like, hey, I can't eat it. Like, I don't want to eat something different from my kids.
Yeah.
Um, and what I tell them, I'm like, for most families, right? Typically breakfast and lunch is kind of on your own, typically. And then dinner is usually the family meal where you're eating with others. And so I'm like, hey, you got at least 2 meals here that you have full control over, and you can really, let's take advantage of that. And then oftentimes, and I do this for myself, is whatever we're having as a family, whether it's like lasagna or tacos or burrito bowls or what can I grab from my pantry, my fridge, my freezer to add to that main meal to balance it out? Maybe I have a little bit smaller portion of whatever the family's having, but then I'm going to add in like a bagged salad kit, or I'm going to add in like a scoop of cottage cheese for a secondary protein source, or maybe there's not enough protein with pizza night, so I'm going to add in maybe like a little leftover chicken or leftover salmon to my like side salad, or I'm going to air fry some frozen vegetables and have that on my like. That way you're still having what everyone else is, but you're just incorporating a little bit more balance to your plate and meeting your needs. And if people are giving you grief about it, I give you full permission to be snarky back to them or just ignoring them, whatever works best for you and your family dynamic. But in the long run, like, you do you and they do them, and that's okay.
What We have a lot of parents out there, and you're a parent, got three, and my son and my daughter are parents, and the kids. How do you get the kids to eat correctly? It's almost like you give them a little healthy thing, but then they want their waffle out of the toaster, and how do you start them on the path, even though they're going to go to a friend's
I'm
house
still
and
figuring that out on my own.
yeah, they're going to go to a friend's house and have a Snickers and Gatorade, and there's nothing much you can do about it. I mean,
It's tough. It's tough.
yeah.
My oldest is 9, my youngest is 2.5.
Mm.
I will say, even as a dietitian, they don't eat perfectly. That is 100% true. But you do the best you can. And the most important thing for me is making sure that they grow up with a good relationship with food, that they don't think of food as like a reward or as like a special treat, that it's just food, and that different foods offer different nutrition for them. My middle child, when I'm like, hey, you can have that piece of candy, but I think you should have some protein with it because you haven't eaten in a few hours and it might give you a tummy ache. And he's like, oh, protein. And he goes and immediately grabs like some chocolate milk or some cottage cheese. He loves to think of himself as like super strong and having lots of muscles. So he's really into like what foods have protein in them. Or like I will do a little bit of gardening. So I grow my own like Roma tomatoes. And so in August, September, I will make spaghetti sauce in a large batch. And I usually will add some carrots, mushrooms, bell peppers, zucchini, some acorn or like butternut squash. And I will blend that all up in the spaghetti sauce so that when we have spaghetti, which is one of their favorites, I am very like sneakily also laughing inside of like all of the vegetables that they're getting in with that. So sometimes I get a little sneaky that way too.
Well, Alex, I'm going to tell you, if I'm coming through Minnesota in August or September, I'm coming in, man. I got to have one of those salads. Oh, I love that. What about supplements? Creatine, magnesium powder. There's so many out there, and I mentioned creatine, magnesium because that's what I I've taken creatine a long time, and magnesium.
Even before it was wildly hot and popular.
Yeah, I took it. Yeah,
it's a huge
forever
topic
ago.
right
Now
now.
everybody's talking about it. I go, my wife and we always kind of did creatine.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
they say, well, for the brain power, add 4 more scoops and,
Yes.
all that stuff. So
Yes.
how do you feel about the supplements like that?
When I started out as a dietitian, I was not super supportive of supplements because I just was a big believer that we should get all of our nutrition through food.
Mhm.
However, now that I have matured as a dietitian, I have a very busy life. Like, I realize it's not always realistic for people with very busy lives to get all of the nutrition that they can through food. And so, and there is things like creatine where, especially with women, we naturally have lower creatine stores, and muscle mass is very important for aging, for bone health. And so with creatine, we have decades worth of research that it's a very safe supplement to take as long as you're taking, the recommended dosage. Usually 3 to 5 grams per day is the recommended, though now we're starting to see this new research on brain health. And so they're starting to say, you could take, 3 or 4 doses of that, 3 to 5 grams a day, spread out throughout the day. So I am definitely team creatine. I think that it's a really effective boost for muscle strength and recovery for athletes. I think there is some fear around it causing a little bit of water retention and weight gain from that, but it's typically pretty minimal. And I think the benefits outweigh that risk of that slight little bit of water retention. I think for the female athlete, making sure they're getting an annual check of their ferritin levels, that's their iron stores, making sure that is for sure above 40, if not above 50. If it is below that, then looking at an iron supplement of some sort. My team and I have actually found the best ferritin response to the Nature Made ferrous sulfate, which is a very inexpensive iron supplement. It's a little bit harder on the gut, so taking it 3 to 4 times a week instead of daily might be better off for people. But that could be one, especially for your female athletes that have a lower ferritin. It can make a really big difference in performance and health and energy levels. As someone who has had a low ferritin before, it's not fun. No matter how great you're eating, it can really cause a lot of exhaustion. So those are the 2 big ones. I have started exploring beta-alanine as well. I interviewed for my podcast a researcher on that. Has kind of similar effects to like the sodium bicarb without the potential GI impact. And you would take like a loading dose of 4 to 6 grams for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then you take a maintenance dose of I think it's 1.2 grams daily. And that can have that similar kind of hydrogen clearing, lactate clearing benefits that sodium bicarb would have. So, I mean, those are just a few, or even doing just 1 protein powder scoop a day to just help supplement your protein needs. I don't love the idea of using it all the time or as a meal replacer, but that can be another way to help athletes just make sure they're getting enough protein to support recovery.
Yes, we're speaking with Alex Larson. And Alex, your podcast, I love your name of your podcast, Endurance Eats. Yes. I love that. That's a good one. So you got to listen to Alex's podcast too. Well, my last question always on Find Your Finish Line. It comes out of I've got friends that race the Baja 1000 here in Baja, California. And it's a 1,000-mile endurance race in the trophy trucks. And afterwards they get together and they call it table racing, where they reminisce about the race or maybe a past race or something. So I call this table racing. We're sitting around the picnic table and talking about an event. Reminisce with us about an event you did or something that happened during the event that you remember kind of off the top of your head.
For me, I always look really fondly back on Ironman Wisconsin. I think that one of the most special things about that race is the volunteers. It really is like a VIP experience. They rack your bike for you. They will grab your special needs bags, at transitions. So that to me, and like this college students, having their fun, cheering on people, and the Three Sisters of Hills, where it feels like you're in the Tour de France with people running alongside you as you're climbing up those hills. To me, that's probably one of the most special races that I have ever done. It it was a interesting year because I got engaged, I got married, I changed jobs, and I moved all in the summer that I trained for that race. And my husband, he looks back on that day and he was like, I feel like I did an Ironman, because he was just running all over the countryside of Madison and the outskirts of Madison, trying to catch glimpses of me. And so it was a wonderful day. Like, it really was such a fond memory. It was a spectacular event.
Yeah, I've got a lot of fond memories. I've got a new book out called Finding Your Finish Line, and I do have a story in that about Wisconsin. One that it came to me about 4 months ago, so I started writing about it, and it's a special place. I missed that one among all of them. I missed that just as much as some of the top ones. So, and I'm glad you got. I'm glad you got through that finish line, huh?
Yeah, me too.
So, Alex, how can people contact you or your team to talk about nutrition, getting themselves on a plan?
I'm on social media at Alex Larson Nutrition. My website is alexlarsonnutrition.com. And you already mentioned my podcast, Endurance Eats. So those are the best places to find me and learn from me.
So leave your age groupers, all the age groupers out there, with one bit of advice about nutrition. What would you leave them with?
Fuel your workouts more. I see so many athletes that go in with the mindset of, what's the least amount of fuel I can get away with in this workout? And I would challenge that and say, how much fuel do I need to take to really get the most out of this workout? That's what I challenge the age group athletes to do more.
I love that. Good. That is perfect. Well, Alex, thank you very much for being on Find Your Finish Line. I'm glad we met via Zoom, and we met in 2014. Heck, I talked with you. You remember that, don't you?
I did. Yeah, of course. Yep.
So take care and good luck. And I love watching your posts. Keep it up, and thank you for all you do for our athletes out there.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you, everyone, for checking in again to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. Make sure you take care of yourselves out there. And as I always say, you are the cause of your own experience. Keep your experiences positive, and you will find that finish line. Aloha, everyone. Alex,